Shalom. When I think about Yom HaShoah, the first thing that comes to my mind are my parents. It's very personal for me. They were Polish Jews who they met after the war, but through different histories, they lost most of their family members, and I never met my extended family. The suffering that they went through, the losses that they had, it's very personal for me. When I think about Yom HaShoah, I think about the 6 million Jews that we lost, part of a civilization, part of a rich culture that we lost. When I think about Yom HaShoah, I think about Elie Wiesel's 11th commandment. Do not give to Hitler basically the ultimate triumph, which means be Jewish, pass on the story, don't stop celebrating Judaism, pass on our history, culture, and religion to your children and your grandchildren so that we will not give Hitler the ultimate triumph.
Right after World War I, my grandfather, Abe Cohen, and his 4 brothers took a boat to the United States and landed in the port of Boston. They migrated down to the Bronx, and there, blocks away from each other, they built businesses and spent Sundays together, becoming very close as a family. One of their brothers, left behind in Lithuania, was asked by the Jewish resistance fighters to leave his family, to fight in the forests. He refused, and ultimately he and his family perished. And the lesson I take away from that name, from that memory, is that love and loyalty is everything. We can't do it alone. We need each other. So whether it's the Jewish family, the American family, or the family of the world, we need to stand by each other.
Shalom, my name is Rabbi Dalia Smansky, and I'm the Director of Education at Temple Ahavat Shalom. Many years ago, when I was a teenager, I was very interested in reading Holocaust survivor stories. My mom, becoming somewhat concerned, asked me why I was so captivated by Jewish suffering. And I told her it wasn't the suffering that captivated me, but the strength. That each story I read was a story of strength, of survival, and of finding a will to live even moments of joy in the darkest of circumstances. And it reminded us that we too can always find strength and joy no matter what our circumstances are. And that is what captivated my heart.
The very last, so richly, brightly, dazzling yellow. Perhaps if the sun's tears would sing against a white stone. Such a yellow is carried lightly way up high. It went away, I'm sure, because it wished to kiss the world goodbye. The very last, so richly, brightly, dazzling yellow. Perhaps if the sun's tears would sing against the white stone. For 7 weeks I've lived in here, pent up inside this ghetto. but I have found what I love here. The dandelions call to me, and the white chestnut branches in the court. Only I never saw another butterfly, the last, the very last, so richly, brightly, dazzling yellow. Perhaps if the sun's tears would sing against a white stone, that butterfly was the last one. Butterflies don't live in here.
When I think of Yom HaShoah, I reflect on the beautiful work being done at the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust and by one of their educators, Michael Morgenstern. Holocaust survivors who once thought they lost any possible family records are now finding documents may actually exist through archives being painstakingly assembled and put online throughout the world. Michael shared two of those stories with me. Both of Miriam Bell's parents perished in the Holocaust, and she had no photographs of them. Through archives in Lithuania, scans of her parents' internal passports were discovered. Miriam was able to see her parents' faces again, and her daughters, nieces, and nephews could finally see their grandparents. Jack Lewin is a survivor in Los Angeles. In 2017, his mother's identification card, issued in Poland's Lodz ghetto, was located. Jack had no pre-war photographs until this discovery, which was 73 years after he last saw her.
My mother, Laura Klein, was inspired to research our family genealogy by Alex Haley's remarkable novel-to-television series, Roots. Her search uncovered numerous relatives, some who escaped the Nazi maniacal machine, and many who did not. Each lost name was a life, with struggles and dreams, joy and despair, hopes for the future. Those few who fled, resettled, immigrated during and after the war were the fortunate ones. I sometimes think about other genocides, other survivors, and also about those who seek refuge and asylum in our own time. I see my family's own experience mirrored in their faces.
Was mich nicht umbringt macht mich starker? What does not kill me makes me stronger. Nietzsche said this about other things, not this. How did my family survive the camps? Were they smarter, stronger than the rest? Were they lucky? Did luck exist in Dora Nordhausen, Auschwitz, and Bergen-Belsen? How did they survive Erfurt, the selection? My mother spoke good German. I see her now at the staging camp, her keen wit dancing around the SS like her young Slavic feet. She was young and good-looking, thin but good-looking, and the SS liked the Ukrainian frown. On the cattle car to Dora, to the chimneys of that camp, my mother rode with her family intact, thinner but intact, and ready for work. The boxcar stopped at the Nordhausen factory, the way out through the crematorium chimney in Dora. Here, my grandmother learned languages: Stavak, Stoi, Rin, Schwein, Halt. In Dora, where not to understand an order meant death, my family could work, hide, and ask for bread. In all the languages of Europe, they learned English the same way. How did my family survive? Survive is not the right word. I'm alive, my father would say, alive. Alive because I did not die. Others died. Keep breathing, he encouraged me in difficult times. Keep breathing.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we love. Their memory keeps shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest nights, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember.
At each B'nai Mitzvot of my daughters, the rabbi led the Lador Vador, the passing of the Torah through my family's generations. I told my daughters that we also need to remember the many family members that lost their lives hoping to have passed their Jewish traditions to us. As a Master Staff Sergeant in the United States Army in World War II, my father saw a concentration camp that had been captured from the Germans. The Army had had him help organize the care for survivors for a short time. He could never bring himself to speak of that experience. A few years ago, I searched online for a great-aunt that had gone to Palestine before World War I. She, of course, would have been 125 years old. But my search found a cousin living in Tel Aviv whose parents had lived through a Polish concentration camp. The stories he told of his parents' experience have brought special meaning to me at Yom HaShoah. My friends, the men of TAS wish every family continued good health. We look forward to seeing everyone in better days ahead.
The Holocaust, a terrible memory for the world. How do humans often cope with terrible memories? In order to feel better, we tend to put unpleasant memories out of our minds. That's normal, human nature. It's how we can recover from loss. But this is a memory that must live on. In this modern world, with anti-Semitism running rampant, the memory of what happened to 6 million of our people and millions of others must not be allowed to fade away.
The eyewitnesses are disappearing before our very eyes. Even a victim who was a 5-year-old during the war is in his 70s now. The adults of that time are in their 90s. Soon, those who experienced this terrible moment in time will all be gone. They will join the ranks of the musicians who didn't survive to write that wonderful symphony, or the artists who aren't here to produce that beautiful work of art, or the physicians who didn't live long enough to find the cure for cancer, or the teachers who were denied the chance to mold the minds of the future.
We remain. It is up to us to keep those memories alive, to produce the music, the art, the scientific achievements, to teach future generations what the world lost, not just European Jewry of that time, but the good that those murdered and the children they never had would have brought to all humanity. Of course, even in moments of terrible despair, there is hope and redemption. One such story features, improbably, a motorcycle. One Izzy Arbiter got on, fell off, and got on again.
It was October 26, 1942. The SS came to the town where Izzy lived and ordered everybody out. The young who could work were separated. The very young and the elderly were put on the other side of the marketplace. That meant he and 2 of his older brothers were on one side, his parents, and his 7-year-old brother on the other. Izzy sneaked over to his parents, but his father told him, "Go back." He said, "Go back over there and try to save yourself and make sure that you carry on the Jewish life and the Jewish tradition."
His father, mother, and brother were taken to Treblinka death camp, where they were among the estimated 900,000 Jews murdered. Izzy and his two brothers were put to work as slave labor in the Nazi war machine. Izzy and one brother would survive. The other was never accounted for. He was put to work in a munitions plant making shells. There were 12-hour shifts, very little food. That's where Anna, a young lady, comes in. Anna remembers the time in the camp where she worked in a kitchen when she learned that Izzy was sick and she snuck food to him at great personal risk, saving his life.
It was an insane time. It was a time when the depraved had free rein. Izzy remembers the commandant of the camp who wore a submachine gun around his neck and sometimes invited friends to the camp to watch him shoot prisoners. And Izzy remembers too well the time he and other prisoners were run out of their barracks and shot down as they ran. "I was the only one of 87 people who lived," he says. "I see it in front of me every day."
In the autumn of 1944, he was sent to Auschwitz, where one of his jobs was to haul the waste from the latrines in the wagon. He strung a wire inside the wagon and hung smuggled food from it. I knew the guards wouldn't look there. At Auschwitz II, he stayed alive because he could work, but others got off the trains and were sent straight to their deaths. The sounds of children screaming for their mothers and fathers stay with him still.
His captivity ended in southern Germany, where he and others were being marched to a place where they thought they would be left to starve to death. But Russian troops were close, and the German guards ran. For a week I was numb. After 5.5 years living in sick, horrible conditions, the filth, the beatings, the dead, Izzy broke down. I cried, I was screaming, "Who am I?" He walked out into the early days of post-war Europe with no idea what he would do or where he would go. An American major helped him. He got him a shower, clothes, and most important, papers that would get him through military checkpoints.
Then he found the motorcycle. He spotted it in a garage in a village. It had a full tank of gas, so he figured it belonged to a German, and the German wouldn't miss it. "I borrowed it," says Izzy. "I never had ridden a motorcycle before. I fell off, but I got back on, and fell off, and got back on, again and again." Rumors were rampant. The post-war grapevine was filled with information about lost people looking for the other lost people. Izzy learned that Anna Balter, the girl who had gotten food to him in the labor camp, was still at Bergen-Belsen, the concentration camp in northern Germany liberated by British forces. He felt compelled to search for her.
I found her barracks. I walked in and said to her, "Would you like to go for a ride with me on my motorcycle?" Anna was living with 4 other girls. They had only one pair of shoes, and a different woman got to wear them each day. "Today is not my day," Anna told Izzy. Izzy bribed the girl with the shoes. Anna was warned. "Don't go with this man," the other girls told her. "He is a gigolo, a real Casanova." They were married in 1946. That was 66 years ago, says Izzy, and she's still around.
What can you do to keep Izzy's story and countless others from disappearing into the dustbin of history? It's easy to think, "I'm too busy. I'm pulled in 1,000 directions. I can't take on any more." But you and I know there's always room for just a little more.
As I light this yellow candle, I vow never to forget the stories of Izzy Arbiter and Anna Balter. and I vow never to forget the lives of the Jewish men, women, and children who were martyred and are symbolized by this flame. They were tortured and brutalized by human beings who acted like beasts. Their lives were taken in cruelty. May we be inspired to learn more about our 6 million brothers and sisters as individuals and as communities, to recall their memory throughout the year so that they will not suffer a double death. May we recall not only the terror of their deaths, but also the splendor of their lives. May the memory of their lives inspire us to hallow our own lives and to live meaningful Jewish lives so that we may help to ensure that part of who they were shall endure always. As Jews, it is our tradition to honor the memory of deceased family members by lighting a candle on the annual yahrzeit date of their passing. From 1938 to 1945, 6 million Jews, men, women, and children, were systematically rounded up, transported to concentration camps, beaten, tortured, starved, and medically experimented upon, worked to death, and ultimately disposed in crematoria. For these people, there is nobody left to honor their memory by lighting a yahrzeit candle. I had an uncle who helped to liberate the Nazi death camps during the waning days of World War II. When he came home, he brought back evidence. He showed us pictures of what he encountered during those liberations. At the age of 10, I was exposed to the horrors of the Holocaust, the Shoah. As an historical guide, I now have the honor of taking groups along Boston's Freedom Trail. In doing so, I make certain that I take them to and through the Holocaust Memorial located near Faneuil Hall. There, I describe the memorial's physical characteristics and what it symbolizes, namely the death of 6 million people who were slaughtered by Hitler and his henchmen for no other reason other than the fact that they were Jewish. The world must never forget the Shoah, truly the darkest period in the history of the Jewish people. It is for that reason I urge you to purchase, to obtain, and distribute yellow candles. These yahrzeit candles should go to all members of every congregation as a way of perpetrating that collective memory. As the Yellow Candle program theme says, light a candle, preserve a memory. Let us never forget. Zacher.
Dor vador